working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every life. I worship you. I worship you. You are here. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. Oh, I worship you. Oh, you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 is who you are. That is who you are.
Well, good morning and welcome to the Rivers online worship experience. My name is Dean Ward and I serve as the lead pastor of the River Church. And I am so grateful that you have chosen to join in with us here this morning. Now, you may be saying, well, where is here? Well, a couple things to note. I want to give us a little bit of hope that spring and summer are on its way. We are in the middle of February, and I want to invite you to pay attention for the next 2 weeks at how much earlier the sun comes out in the morning. Okay, how much earlier the overcast sky shows up in the morning. Because at the end of February, the last couple weeks, it seems like it gets bright exponentially faster earlier in the morning. And notice the next 2 weeks, if it just seems like it's getting darker a little bit later, a little bit faster, going more daylight than what we've been experiencing. It's a happy time. Also, I thought it would be fun to film in front of just a mound of sand. As stated in the past, I love filming in front of things that make me look small. I saw this mound of sand at the concrete factory, and I thought, man, I want to film in front of that. And also to allow us to just hope for, those of us that love the ocean, that those sandy beaches that might be coming this summer. It's just around the corner. We're just 4 months away from June, and we have sand to inspire us. Now, I was just told that I should have worn flip-flops to celebrate the sand, but I don't like cold feet. As a matter of fact, I was leaving the church to go preach, and a friend of mine was there, and I said, hey, I got to go preach. And they looked at me up and down and said, you're preaching in that? Like, yes, I am. Imagine what they would have said if I had flip-flops on. Also, filming at the concrete plant, a friend asked, well, wait, are you going to preach that you better behave or you might end up, at the bottom of the river swimming with the fishes? No, that's not where we're going today. Today we are in part 3 of our series, just simply called Future Family. And today we're going to break down the common cause of the conflict that you and I have. Now, The reality is, most of us, most of our families have one thing in common. I would venture to say that all of our families have this one thing in common. Regardless of what our family looks like, regardless of the demographics, regardless of everything, one thing all of our families have in common is conflict. Families experience conflict. And so today we're going to take a deep look at what causes the conflict and what we can do about it. Now, it's important to understand as we begin that this sermon series was preached by Andy Stanley over a decade ago, and we are leaning into this series. So a lot of what's being shared is not original to me. Andy and his team came up with it, but it's so helpful. I wanted to pass it on to you. We felt collectively as a church that anytime in February we get to do a series on family, that it's helpful. And so we wanted to share this with you for these 4 weeks. Now, one thing that we've learned is that there are no winners when it comes to arguments, is there? I think that the reality is that we don't win anything in our family when we win a conflict or an argument with a family member. In the courtroom, yes, if we win an argument, we win. In the boardroom, yes. In the living room, bedroom, or kitchen, no, not really. We don't really win anything when we win an argument. Relatively speaking, in our family, when it comes to conflict and arguments, the best defense is no defense. We don't handle it the same way, but we all have it. In our families, there are many different ways we can handle it. Maybe you're in a family that has sulkers, just like, I'm just lost in my conflict. I'm sulking. I'm whining about it. I'm complaining about it. I'm just, come dig me out of my hole and start apologizing, and I might get better. Or maybe you're in a family of screamers, where you resolve conflict by you just amp it up, get it all out, lay it all out, blaze it all out, and then you're done. It's over, and you just kind of move on. And likely, if you're a screamer, you might have married somebody that comes from a family not of screamers. And when you start amping it up and they cower back like, are you demon possessed? Like, what is going on with you? Those are always fun dynamics to try to work through. Or maybe you're from a family that just has stuffers in it, where we just stuff everything down and deny that it's there. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Just everything's fine. Just leave me alone. I'm fine. Or maybe you're in a family of peacemakers. I just want everybody to be happy, and I just want everybody to get along, and I just want everybody to like me. And so we do our best to be a peacemaker. Or perhaps we're in a family of litigators. Man, if you're in a relationship with a litigator, you're never going to win an argument because they're professionals at it. Sure, you're right, because you can win the argument, but you don't really win, do you? We have different responses, but there is only one real reason for the conflict that we have in our relationships. So today, I'm going to do my best to coax the beast out of its lair so we can take a good look at it and learn how to defeat it, okay? Here we go. And to help us in this project, we're going to lean into James, the brother of Jesus, in a book that he wrote to the early Christians in the early church. We're going to lean into some of the most profound, helpful teaching ever given when it comes to conflict and managing and navigating conflict in relationships and in families. So I'd like to begin with the question that James asks in James chapter 4, verse 1. He begins by saying, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Now, I'm half tempted to ask you to turn to the person that you're with, whether at home or in your driving, if someone's in the car with you, turn to the person you're with and ask them this question and begin to process through what it is that causes the fights and quarrels that you might have. But the reality is, if I do that, you will probably get into a fight or a quarrel. So we're gonna avoid that, because we may respond, well, you're the one that causes the fights. You're the one that causes the quarrels. One of the reasons that we struggle to resolve relational conflicts is because we don't quite grasp why we fight and quarrel to begin with. So in the first part of this message, I'm going to do my best to help us understand what James wanted us to understand right at the beginning. Now, you may be tempted to say, yes, I do know what causes. He doesn't listen. Or my parents are always butting into my life. My roommate is so messy. Let me tell you about that. My boss is always stealing my good ideas and taking credit for them himself. My neighbor's yard, it's an absolute mess. My kids are so irresponsible. My wife, she can't add. She only subtracts. Last week, we learned this notion and we observed this tendency that we have, that if everybody would only do what I want them to do in our family, we would have no conflicts. We would have no issues. We would have no problems. There would be peace. Often we go straight into blame. Do you know how many problems have been solved by going into blaming? Yeah, none of them. Like, hey, thanks, honey, for blaming me. I'm so much better now. That's great. In my life, I have learned that if I ultimately take responsibility for everything, it helps take off some of the pressure. It helps lower some of the temperature in the room. If I'm able to admit, you're right, it is my fault, I am responsible. I experienced this first as a young kid. I was out playing in the mud with my friend, and I got home and I got inside and I got some mud in the house, and my mom was furious with me. And she's like, you go upstairs and get a bath, take a shower, clean off, and then I'm going to give you a spanking. And I'm like, you're right, Mother. It's all my fault. I am so sorry. I did wrong. As soon as I took responsibility for it, it was like holding up a mirror, and she saw how insane she was being, how over she was reacting, and she started to laugh. I did get the shower. I didn't get the spanking. That was a fun move. So I've just kind of learned when we take responsibility and say, yeah, now I'll own that, it kind of lowers the temperature in the room. As long as I blame others, listen to this, as long as I blame others for my unhappiness, my frustration, my annoyance, guess what? I will always be unhappy, frustrated, and annoyed. When we blamed, we literally place our well-being in the hands of the person that we're blaming. Kind of like, if only you would do this, then I would be happy. It's all your fault. If you would do that, or if, we are placing our well-being in someone else's control, and we don't even realize we're doing it. Because if we did, we'd be like, I'd never do that. That'd be ridiculous. But when we blame, when we shift responsibility for what's broken, when we shift responsibility for the tension, the turmoil, onto somebody else, we're doing that exact things. James chapter 4, verse 1, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Well, this is so general. I mean, what a wide open question. There can't just be one answer. The list has to be as varied and as different as there are people in the room. Then James continues, don't they, meaning conflicts, don't conflicts come from your desires that battle within you? James says, ultimately, the conflicts come inside of you. There is a common source inside of you. You have a desire that is spilling out onto others that they are not meeting, and you're getting angry. You're getting frustrated. When you realize this, don't you see that? Aren't you the problem? Aren't you the one that unmet expectation resides inside of? Now, if we stop right there and own this, it would immediately de-escalate so much of the conflict that we have with people in our family. James chapter 4, verse 2 continues. He says, you desire, but you do not have. Every time there's a conflict, you want something, but you don't get it. Now you say, no, that's not it. It's something that I deserve, something they promised me. Okay, let's make it clear. Every time there is a conflict with someone in your family, there is something you want that you don't have. I'm going to invite you to watch this video and see how this might play out in real life in this family situation. Now, this video, it's not easy to watch because it hits close to home. And we don't see the resolution that we want. And I want to invite you to sit with the tension as we watch this video just simply called The Fight.
You come out here to talk about parenting styles?
You know we have a sensitive daughter, Jace. She cries when you look at her sideways. Never mind the tone of voice you use with her.
Sorry I haven't read as many parenting books as you, but maybe she just needs to learn to cope. Not getting to read a book before bed is not the end of the world.
You use the same tone of voice with me.
Sometimes you cry when you don't get to read your Kindle at night. Me, I'm more of a Netflix guy, so it's really not
Stop! Okay, just stop it. Everything is a joke with you. I feel like we're not communicating anymore.
Okay. This is about us. Oh, you communicate great. Yeah, with the way you undermine me all the time in front of her. And in front of everyone, for that matter. Our friends, our family. You cut my legs off at the knees, and it's emasculating.
You do that all on your own, Jace. We're supposed to be rubbing off on each other. We're supposed to be finding the good in one another.
Yeah.
Not just you affecting me.
So what am I missing?
I feel like I'm the one doing all the bending. I know how much I've changed
What?
over the years,
Are
and if
you
you could
kidding me? You're doing all the bending. You are.
You used to. When we first got married, everything was just so...
We were different. We were kids. What are you not saying?
I'm just saying, you never want to talk about us.
Well, that's calling the kettle black, isn't it? Coming from the person that makes indirect comments about everything I say and do because you're so afraid of conflict? Why don't you just come out and say it? I'm not like you, and that's the problem, right?
Well, surely I'm of some use to you. You're not just here for my benefit. I'm here for you too. I'm just telling you that you could just
And I'm
lie.
telling you, I'm not your father. I'm sorry. I love you. I love our daughter. I'm not going anywhere. But I'm not your dad, and I'm being punished for the way he treated you, and it's not fair.
Right. So I guess I'm just some poster child for daddy issues. All in one sentence. Congratulations. I'm glad we got that settled.
That's not what I said. You misunderstood me.
I'm going to bed.
We used to assume the good.
We used to see the best in each other.
Let's just take a deep breath after that video. James continues in chapter 2. He uses hyperbole and overstatement, but maybe he's not overstating too much. Again, verse 2, you desire, but you do not have. And then he says, so you kill. Now, let's be clear. James was not writing to convicted felons who were in prison. He's overstating. He's not talking to murderers. But I think in a sense he is saying and referring to the damage that we do when we amp up and have to win a conflict at all cost. Isn't it interesting that the people we hurt the most are the ones closest to us? Why? Because they're the closest. Your mom, your ex-spouse, the person you pledge your life to. Some of us, this is going to be very hard. Some of us have seen parents kill their relationships with their children because they wouldn't do what the parents wanted. Men, power up and kill with your words, with your disapproval, with your scowl, with your look. You can shred someone's self-worth. You can shred it with your words. And oftentimes, when we were younger, ours was shredded with words, and we just keep the same pattern going on and on and on. You can hurt the person close to you so deeply that something dies. No matter what you say later, you can't remove what you said. Never bring up something negative that can't be changed. Some of you have killed or almost killed relationships because you could not get what you wanted. You tried to criticize them into submission. You tried to shame them into doing your bidding. You belittle them. You did this because of something you wanted and they would not or could not give you. But you say, I just want the best for them. Well, the reality is it's still about you. James continues, you covet, which means that you intensely focus on something that you want, but you cannot get what you want. Now pay attention to this because our self is never satisfied. Self has an unquenchable thirst for what I want and more. There is not enough stuff, relationships, sex, or self to say, I'm done. We all want more. And the more we feed an appetite, the more it grows in intensity. Our desires and our pleasures are not dealt with best by attempting to satisfy them. And it is our endless attempt to satisfy them, to satisfy our wishes and desires, that result in war. Self's natural tendency is to try to squeeze happiness out of the people closest to us. And if we try to squeeze my happiness out of if I try to squeeze my happiness out of my wife and my kids, they'll suffocate, and I won't get what I want. A little over 25 years ago, Leslie and I moved to Tupelo, Mississippi to begin pastoring a church. I was shifting careers and going into the ministry at 30 years old. And I was scared to death, and we went on this big adventure, moved 800 miles from home, and we were all each other had. And the first several months, I felt so much pressure from my wife to be everything that she needed me to be. And I finally had to say to her, Leslie, I love you with my whole heart, but I will not be everything that you crave and desire me to be. That's too high of a standard for me to reach. I can't meet all of your wants and needs. So I'm going to ask you to lean into God and trust Him for those things that I am not created or wired to provide for you. Your security, your well-being, your happiness cannot be found in me. That's too heavy of a weight to bear. And Leslie will describe that as a defining moment in a healthy shift in our relationship and in Leslie's relationship with her Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Paul continues. Right back where we started from. He says, so we quarrel and fight. Well, that's why we quarrel and fight. So let's confess. The problem is we are not getting what we want. In the middle of an argument, I want to invite you to look this person that you're arguing with straight in the eye and say, you know what part of the problem is here? I am not getting what I want. And just see how that lands. See if that helps de-escalate some of the intensity. As a matter of fact, I want to give us an opportunity to practice that right now. You're like, oh, Dean, you did that last Sunday and I didn't enjoy it. Well, I know. This isn't designed to be fun, but let's give it a shot, okay? Let's hear. We're going to have it up on the screen, this statement, and I want you to say it out loud. You know what part of the problem is here? I am not getting what I want. Now, I said it with you to help you because these are hard words, but I'm going to let you say it by yourself, okay? Here you go. You know what part of the problem is here? Now, Andy Stanley, he describes a time in his ministry when he did marriage counseling. Now, I don't recommend that any pastor do marriage counseling because it is a rabbit hole of despair that we are not trained for. But he described how one of the techniques he would use is he would identify what problem the person was dealing with, because he said there's really no marriage problems, there's just people problems. And then once I would get it identified, oh, one of these three problems, I would take a circle and draw it like a pie, and I would say, okay, now I want you to identify here with just a little slice what part of this problem you think is your responsibility. Just a little even tiny sliver is fine. Just do it. Go ahead. Here's the pen. He said to a man, they would never complete the exercise. They would never admit that any part of the conflict was them. And you know why? Because when you own a slice, you have to be nice. Own. That's when you try to combine some words that you shouldn't try to combine. Own any part of it, any part of the conflict, any part of the issue. Own just a little of it, and immediately you lose some energy, you lose some leverage, you lose some momentum to winning. And we don't want to give that up. You say, wait. But my husband vowed. My boss made a contract. My roommate swore. Okay, let me rephrase it. I want what I was promised, and I'm not getting what I want. Because the sentence always ends with, I'm not getting what I want. I want her to do what she said in the contract she would do, and I'm not getting what I want. My problem is that I'm not getting what I deserve, what's due me, what is promised me. Well, I object. But they aren't being fair. Well, if we feel that it's not fair that we're not getting what we want, I mean, fairness ended in Genesis chapter 3. I mean, fairness, and let's just be honest. Let's take a hard look, an honest look. Our number one concern is not about fairness. We don't really care about fairness. How upset do we get when other people are being treated unfairly? How much emotional energy do we spend? We play the fairness card only when it benefits us. We want to be treated fairly. Like when there's a parking spot and you get a front row parking spot at a very crowded venue, do you ever say, oh, it's just not fair that so many other people want to park in this spot and I found it first? No, we're like, thank you, Jesus, for the blessing of this parking spot and for your favor that rests on me. Last night, my wife and I went out to celebrate Valentine's Day, a day after Valentine's Day, and there was no parking anywhere. And I went down an alley and I saw a parking spot right on the street that if I pulled ahead, I could get in, but there was a car coming, and then he was slow. I realized he was going for the very same spot, but he was going to be facing the wrong illegal direction. So I pulled out and got my nose in the parking spot, and then he backed up, and I got what I wanted. Now, does that just kill the momentum that the pastor just confessed that? Maybe I should have Matt edit that out. But, parking lot issues, I wasn't really worried about what was fair for him because we're not all that committed to fairness. Now, if you just lost respect for me, I apologize. My wife was with me. She already had words with me. We worked all that out. I confessed it, and we moved on. I was just relaying to you a story. Sometimes I relay these stories to you, and you're like, he never said he was sorry. He never confessed that to God. He's going to die in his sin. Listen, God and I have an open stream for me for confession and asking for forgiveness because I am still a work in progress. But I digress. So, what are we supposed to do? Well, let me just say, if you're not a follower of Jesus Christ, if you're not a Christian, you can just check out for the next few minutes because everything we shared up until this point, you can do. You don't have to be a believer. You can do, and it will be helpful to you immensely. But if you are a Christian, here's what we are supposed to do. James 4, verse 2 says, you do not have because you do not ask God. Before we go roaring down the hall, firing off to our kids or our spouse, or before we hit send on that fiery email that we just typed up, where you give them a piece of your mind, or before we sulk away into our hidden lair, I just want to ask, have you taken this to God? Have you just paused before him and say, God, I'm really struggling with what I want here. And I want to turn this over to you. I want to ask you to forgive me for my selfishness and self-centeredness. And I want you to win here. And then I confess this to you. And I trust you in this situation. Have you really spent time getting to the root of what it really is that you want? You want a happy marriage and you're trying to squeeze it out of your spouse. You want your kids to be all they can be and you're trying to force them to be that. You want a wife who is a and a husband who is, and she isn't, or he isn't. You want parents who, and they aren't. Have you paused to discover what you're trying to squeeze out of your family members? Have you taken that to God first? Have you ever poured out your heart to your Father in heaven? Not just prayed, but poured out your heart to him with the same emotion with which you pour out your frustration on everyone else. Your concerns are important to God because you are important to God. Dating, love, loneliness, jobs, parents, roommates, these concerns of yours are important to God. Bring them to him. If you do, it will help take the edge off your conversations. Verse 3 says, when you ask, you don't receive, because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your own pleasures. The reality is, God may not be giving you what you want because he knows if you get what you want, you're on a short, slippery slope to destruction. We need to learn to take no for an answer. I need to learn to take no for an answer. We need to trust that God has our best interest at heart. So if there's no guarantee that God is going to give it to us, then why bring it to him at all? Well, that's because as long as we try to squeeze out of our family members what they can't give us, our happiness, our contentment, our well-being, we're going to have conflict. Yes, there is a time to talk about all of this with the people we're having conflicts with. But after we have surrendered the issues to our Father, the tone of those conversations will be completely different. Relationally speaking, the best defense is no defense. So as we wrap this up, let's just observe a few things. The source of our external conflict is an undetected inner conflict that is raging out of control. Our willingness to acknowledge this could be the key to unlock health and healing in our relationships. It could revolutionize our relationships. If we just tell the truth, the reason I'm so angry, frustrated, the reason I'm so bent out of shape, the reason I'm upset is because I am not getting what I want. It will enable us to quit blaming others for our discontentedness, our frustration, our annoyance, our ugliness, our unhappiness. It may be the thing that enables us to surrender ourselves to the one who knows what's best for us in our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Who is suffering because you're not getting your own way? That's a question to ask. Hey, who in my family am I hurting because I'm not getting my own way? Who in my family am I pushing away, damaging, wounding because I'm not getting my own way? What would happen if you were to say to them, hey, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that I've been so out of control related to this. Will you please forgive me and be patient with me as I try to grow and learn? It's not your fault. The problem is that I'm not getting my way. Now, let me give you some insight. Let me help you here. They already know. They know that that's the issue. And they were just wondering when you would own up to it and figure it out. They would breathe a deep sigh of relief. And that one simple acknowledgement may just revolutionize your relationship. It's time to apologize and make it a habit of taking unmet expectations to the only one who can do anything about them. You can't always get what you want, but you might just find that you can get grace and mercy and goodness when you need them the most. God bless you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in with us. I can't wait till I get to see you again next week for part 4, the last sermon we're going to have for a while in this sermon series. God bless you all.